So today we are going to discuss about Hadoop, right? So before going for Hadoop, what is the reason to go for Hadoop? Okay, what is the reason to go for Hadoop? So before that, so let me discuss a small definition. So that is, first of all, what is web application? What is web application? The application which is having some client server architecture. The application which is having some client server architecture, that type of applications we are calling as web applications or web application. So best example is Google. So Google point of view, we are acting as a client, but server may be located at any part of the world. It may be India, US, Australia, anywhere. So we are giving a request and we are getting the response. So these type of applications, what we are calling as an exactly web application. Okay. So let me explain a small architecture. So assume that this is front end and back end. So in the front end, I'm having some fields, maybe some name, email, phone number. Name, email, and phone number. And here we're having some save button as well. And this is nothing but a database. So it may be MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server. It can be anything. Okay. So between this front end and back end, here we're having a one more component. So that is nothing but server. Having one more component called as server. It may be Crashfish, Apache Tomcat. It can be any server. Okay. So here this is a simple flow. So generally if you go for any web application, right? So we are doing majorly two tasks. So one is saving and one more thing is fetching. Okay. So now I'm discussing about how we are saving the data and as well as how we are retrieving the data or how we are fetching the data from database to front end. Okay. So here I'm having a two requirements. So first requirement is I need to save the data in a database, and second requirement is I need to retrieve the data from database to front end. Okay, these are the two requirements what we are having. Okay, first thing is I need to save the data in a database, and second thing is I need to retrieve the data from database to front end. Okay, simple requirements. So just now assume that just I'm giving some values for each and every field, and once if we click on this save, right, so I need to save these values to database. So just assume that I'm giving some values, and now once if I click on the save, so request will go to server, server will communicate to database, and finally values is going to save. So maybe some values, maybe Hadoop, some email, okay. So Hadoop at the rate of some gmail.com, and maybe some number, okay, some number. So this is my first requirement. So nothing but I need to save the data to database, okay, or values to database, anything is fine. So now I want to retrieve these values from database to front end, okay. So nothing but here, if you go for any database, okay, it may be MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, any database, it is going to perform two tasks, okay. So one is save, and one more thing is, instead of save, let me modify as storage, and the second one is, so now I want to retrieve these values from database to front end. Means first of all, database itself need to process, or just assume that MySQL itself need to process that respective values, then only we can get the respective values from backend to front end, nothing but what we are calling as in processing, okay. So now if I want to retrieve these values from database to front end, right, here we're using already existing technologies, okay, already we're using so many existing technologies, most popular technologies as well. So Java, .NET, PHP, so like this we're using so many technology here, okay. So here whatever the flow, right, or whatever the architecture which I explained you, so this is a simple flow, and this is the same flow in which we are implementing in our software development as well, okay. My intention is, already we're having so many technologies, nothing but like Java, .NET, PHP, and we are following some architecture as well. And my intention is to tell to you that what is the reason to go for Hadoop. Already existing so many technologies is there, right? Otherwise, why Hadoop came into picture? Okay, so now let me explain you. Let me explain you one more web application, maybe some fp.com. Okay, so just assume that initially Facebook is using backend database as MySQL. What is the database here? MySQL. So just assume that its capacity is how much capacity it can store, or how much amount of data it can store. 500 GB. Okay, how much amount of data can be stored by MySQL? 500 GB. Okay. So just assume that Facebook was introduced around maybe some 2003. So they're getting some 10 GB of data per month. How much amount of data here? 10 GB of data per month. In 2004, maybe some 100 GB of data per month. So same in 2005 as well. Maybe some 300 GB of data per month. But in 2006, it is the most popular social networking platform, right? So maybe some 600 GB of data per month. So like this, current year, maybe in 2016, just we are assuming only, okay, maybe some 10 terabyte of data per day. So in 2017, maybe it can be some 100 terabyte of data per day. Okay, so can we store this 600 GB and 10 terabyte and even this 100 terabyte of data in MySQL? We are unable to store. Okay, so we are unable to store this amount of data in our MySQL. Okay, so this data, what we are exactly calling as big data. Okay, so whatever the data in which it was unable to handle by MySQL, right? So that data, what we are exactly calling as big data. Okay, this data what we are calling as an big data. So in MySQL point of view, so this amount of data, it may be big data for MySQL, but it may not be for Oracle. It depends upon the software. Okay, but we are assuming in MySQL point of view, this amount of data what we are exactly calling as big data. Okay, so first of all, big data is a problem. Okay, here the what are the problems here? So first one is we are unable to store the data, nothing but storage. And whenever if you are not able to store, right, definitely we are unable to process that respective data as well. So second thing is nothing but processing. So these are the two problems what we are facing here. Okay, so what are the two problems you are facing from big data? One is storage and one more thing is processing. These are the two problems what we are facing from big data. Okay, so now in order to solve these problems, okay, now to solve these problems, we are moving for a open source framework and which is currently maintained by Apache organization. So that is nothing but Hadoop. Okay, Hadoop is an open source framework which is going to solve big data problem and which is currently maintained by Apache organization. Okay, so whatever the softwares in which we are getting from Apache organization, most of the softwares are open source only. Okay, so what is the conclusion here? So big data, first of all, it is a problem. Okay, in order to solve that respective problem, right, we need to go for a open source framework and which is currently maintained by Apache organization, that is nothing but Hadoop. Okay, Hadoop is an open source framework which is going to solve big data problem. Okay, and which is currently maintained by Apache organization. Okay, so that is the reason we need to go for Hadoop. Okay, so here major problem is, so within a less time we are getting huge amount of data. That is a problem. Okay, and which was unable to and this whatever the data, okay, which we are getting rapidly, this amount of data which was unable to handle by our existing traditional data management tools. Okay, our existing traditional data management tools. Here traditional data management tools means nothing but our existing databases, simply nothing but it can be MySQL, RDBMS, SQL Server, anything. Okay, so now if you want to solve that problem, okay, if you want to handle huge amount of data, okay, so we need to go for a open source framework called as Hadoop. Okay, so that is the reason we need to go for Hadoop. Okay, so now if you go for Hadoop, so is having Hadoop is having two major components. Okay, Hadoop is having two components. So one is administration and one more thing is development. Okay, one is administration and one more thing is an development. Okay, so now within the Hadoop, these are the concepts what we're having. So HDFS, PMR, nothing but map reduce, Hive, Pig, Scoop, HBase, Zookeeper. So like this, we're having so many concepts here. Okay. So before going for some more discussion, so let me explain you a small example. Okay. So just assume that you have purchased a new laptop. Okay. You have installed some OS as well, and after installation of OS, so now your requirement is you want to listen some songs, or otherwise you want to see or you want to watch some video. Okay, that is your requirement. And even just assume that you don't have any players in your respective laptop. Okay, so generally what we are doing here, so we are going to Google and we are downloading some media related softwares, maybe some VLC media player, some players, and after downloading just we are installing. Okay, after successful installation, so now your requirement is fulfilled, nothing but to listen some song or to watch some video as well, right? Same way here also, just assume that I want to go for Hive development. Okay, if I want to go for Hive development, we need to go for, first we need to go for administration. So that is nothing but purely installation part. Purely it is an installation part, nothing but same way we need to go to Google and we need to download the respective Hive software from the respective website, right? After downloading, we need to go for some sequence of steps. Nothing but how we can configure Hive in our respective operating system. Then we need to go for Hive development. Okay, that is the process what we're having. Okay, so if you want to go for any development, maybe some Hive, Pig, Scoop, anything, right? First of all, we need to go for installation. Okay, nothing but what we're calling as in purely administration stuff. Okay, how to configure some software. How to configure maybe some Hive. Okay, then we need to go for development here. And even in our software market as well, we're having two jobs. So majorly Hadoop is Hadoop admin, and one more thing is in Hadoop development as well. Okay, and here in for map reduce, so we require some core Java concepts. So entire core Java doesn't require, right? So majorly some oops, collections, exception handling. Maybe if you're having some inner clauses, if possible some iOS teams, very important, iOS teams as well, iOS teams. So these concepts are highly recommended. Okay, so majorly oops, collections, exception handling is highly recommended. So if we are having these concepts also, well and good. Okay, so these are the requirement for if you want to learn some MR concept, nothing but a map reduce. Okay, and you require some SQL fundamentals as well, and some Linux fundamentals. Okay, otherwise, so these are the prerequisites concepts, or these are the prerequisites courses. So if you want to learn Hadoop, okay, and these are the not mandatory. Okay, even so before MR, I'm going to cover this core Java concepts as well. Okay, before I'm going to cover some SQL fundamentals and even some Linux fundamentals as well. Okay, so core Java means complete core Java doesn't expire. So whatever the concepts which were required for MapReduce, if you know the respective concepts, so easily we can go for MapReduce as well. Okay, so these are the concepts which we are going to cover further. Okay, so already I have mentioned you big data is a problem, right? So here if you go for big data, so if you go for big data is a problem. Here what are the problems we are facing? First of all, so which I mentioned you already. So one is nothing but storage, and one more thing is processing. Storage, and one more thing is processing. Right? So if you want to solve these problems, we are moving for a framework called as Hadoop, which I mentioned already. Within the Hadoop, right, what are the concepts is going to solve these two problems here? Okay, so that is, one is nothing but, if you want to solve storage problem, we need to go for HDFS, and if you want to solve this processing problem, right, we need to go for MR, nothing but a map reduce. Okay, so these are the two internal concepts of Hadoop which is going to solve the big data problem. Okay, if you want to solve the storage problem, we need to go for HDFS. If you want to solve the processing problem, right, we need to go for map reduce. Okay, so otherwise simply we can mention that Hadoop is nothing but a combination of HDFS and as well as MR. So why I mentioned the combination means, so if you go for Hive, right, we're having a separate software, we need to go for installation and then we need to go for development. But if you want to install this HDFS and MR, right, here we don't have any separate software here. So whenever if you are installing the Hadoop, right, automatically this HDFS and MR is also going to be installed. Okay, so how to install Hadoop we're going to discuss later, but once if you have configured Hadoop, right, so we are going to get two internal concepts of Hadoop automatically, that is nothing but a HDFS and MR. That is the reason I have mentioned as in Hadoop is a combination of HDFS and MR. Okay, so before going for further, right, first let me discuss about HDFS. Okay, so what is the topic here? HDFS, nothing but Hadoop distributed file system. HDFS means Hadoop distributed file system. Okay, or we can say that what is the reason to go for HDFS? Okay, simply I can mention you what is the reason to go for HDFS. What is the reason to go for HDFS? So generally, first of all, we are having some concept called as a file system. What is the concept here? File system. So file system. So every operating system, okay, whether it is a Windows, Linux, Solaris, any operating system is having its own file system. Okay, for suppose if you go for Windows, so what is the file system we're having? First of all, NTFS, FAT32. Okay, this is the file systems what we're having. Same way if you go for Linux as well, right? We're having a operating system. Sorry, we were having a file system called as ext3, ext4. So like this. Okay. So first of all, what is the general usage of file system here? Generally, what is the general usage of file system? So nothing but it is going to store. It is going to store some amount of data. Okay, it is going to store some amount of data. Okay, that is the general usage of any file system, not the file system which you are having. Okay, so here we are having some, just assume that we are having some system. So we are having some system and just assume that its capacity is 500 GB. How much here? Its capacity is 500 GB. Okay, so can I store 100 GB of data? Yes, we can store. So can we store some 300 GB of data? Yes, we can store. So can I store some 600 GB of data? We are unable to store, but we can. So that is nothing but by using some compression techniques. Okay, by using some compression techniques. Okay, so even we can store 600 GB of data in 500 GB of hard disk is possible by using some compression techniques. Nothing but, so we need to make each and every file as a some rar files, war files. Okay, if you are doing like that, so even we can store 600 GB of data in 500 GB of hard disk here. Okay, it is possible purely. Okay, so like this data is keep on growing on. Okay, so can you store some 1 TB of data here? Now we are unable to store this 1 TB of data in 500 GB of hard disk. So as the data is keep on growing on, right, so we are unable to show this amount of data in 500 GB of hard disk. Okay, then what is the solution we're having? Nothing but we're having some external hard disk. That is the solution what we're having. Okay, so just for 1 TB of data, I'm going with external hard disk. Okay, so like this data is keep on going on, maybe some 2 TB, 3 TB, 4 TB, right? At some point of time, even we're unable to maintain this external hard disk as well. Okay, so here what are the problems or what are the limitations we are having for existing file system here? Okay, so one is we are unable to store huge amount of data. Okay, we are unable to store huge amount of data. So whenever if you are not able to store, definitely we are unable to process. We are unable to process huge amount of data. And third one, so maybe we're having some data loss as well. Okay, data loss, maybe power failure, system failure, maybe some software hardware failure. So we're having some n number of problems. So there may be definitely we're having some data loss as well because it is a single system. So we're having a multiple ways so for losing the existing data, right? And fourth one, very very important, metadata. So nothing but information about the data. Information about the data, or simply we can call it as an data about the data. Okay, data about the data, what we are calling as an metadata. Okay, so let me explain a small example. For suppose here I'm having some D drive. So just assume that within the D drive I'm having some 50 folders. Okay, how many folders here? 50 folders. For easy naming convention, so I'm giving each and every folder name as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So like this, I'm giving for each and every folder for easy naming convention. Just okay. So now within the first folder, I'm having some files. Okay, maybe some text files, image files, audio files. Okay, same for second folder, third folder as well. Today I can remember. So within this first folder, these are the files what we're having. Okay, but what about tomorrow? Okay, or maybe some after 1 month, maybe some 3 months. So can we remember? We are unable to remember shortly, right? So here nothing but data is there. Okay, that we are having a so different types of data. Okay, different types of data we are having in multiple folders, but we are unable to remember. Okay, so here we must have some concept. So based upon that respective concept, we have to identify within this first folder these many number of files we're having. Okay, so like that we don't have that respect to concept here. That concept what we're calling as a metadata. That concept we don't have in our existing file systems. Okay, what is the concept here? Here already we're having huge amount of data which was present in a multiple folders. Okay, we are unable to remember some huge amount of time. Okay, we are unable to remember. Today we can remember tomorrow, but maybe it's not possible for after 1 month. Okay, but if you go with some concept, so by using that concept, we need to identify. Okay, so within this first folder, these many number of files we're having, or within this second folder, these many number of files we have. But that concept we don't have yet. That concept what we are calling as a metadata. Okay, these are the limitations what we are facing in our existing file system. Either it can be some Windows or Linux. So what are the limitations here? So we are unable to store huge amount of data. We are unable to process huge amount of data. It may be some data loss as well, and we are having some metadata problem as well. Okay, so in order to overcome these limitations, right, we are moving for a one more file system called as DFS. What is the file system here? DFS. Nothing but a distributed file system. Okay.